Welcome to Fathers in Color, where we discuss tips and tricks of the trade, as well as some of the differences between how we were fathered and how we plan on fathering the next generation. I'm your host, Delroy Edwards, and we have a good one here for you. Today's topic is what's best for us, and it's an interview with Gairy James. I have Gairy James here on the mic. Let's go. Gairy, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the people where you're from, as well as how many kids you have.
Yeah, all right. Gairy James. I am from Brooklyn, New York, by way of Jamaica.
Mhm.
And I have three little ones. I have a son and I have two daughters.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And well, your youngest is about to be 3 coming up, right?
Yep,
Three?
yep, yep.
Yes.
The real ruler of the house.
Yeah. No, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Gary's pretty much a brother of mine.
Mhm.
Through marriage, but Gary is just a really cool person. So, I really latched onto him as a brother. So I'm glad to have you here, Gary.
Thank you,
Let's
brother.
get into some of these questions. So, um, like myself, you moved from New York to Charlotte, North Carolina, and
Yep.
so there are many fathers out there who may be considering moving to better their families. Be better fathers, and probably make more money. Get into real estate. What was it that made you leave New York City for Charlotte, North Carolina?
Well, when me and my wife decided that we wanted a family, we definitely did not want to raise our children in the city of New York, right?
Hmm.
It's based on family dynamics and just the optics of the city, right?
Hmm.
Um, Growing up until I came to America, I was in a suburban setting in Jamaica. Very strong community ties and sort of the concept of the village raises the child type of thing. And when we started to look at places we wanted to live, we didn't see the city of New York being sort of conducive to that environment. So we looked around. And of course, family is very important to us. So of course, we looked at where my brother was. We looked at where my mom was, and though they're not in NC per se, they're close, right?
Hmm.
Florida and Georgia. So yeah, we decided on North Carolina. Again, just based on the what's important to us from a family standpoint. Also, we could have gotten that, I guess, upstate New York, but I'm not a fan of the cold. So, you know, so weather was a factor as well. So, the family dynamic, the family support, and the weather, and NC was just a perfect combination of all.
Nah, that's what's up. I mean, definitely the same things. Like, I'm not a fan of the cold,
Yeah,
snow. I wasn't really trying to shovel no snow at all.
nah, nah,
So
nah,
when
nah.
we were looking for different places to move, obviously we came to visit you guys in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I loved it. I was in North Carolina before when I was in the Marine Corps, so it was like essentially like a second home to me being in the South. But
Yeah,
yeah, New York just wasn't
it's
it
not it.
wasn't it.
It's
New
not it.
York
It's
just
not
wasn't
it.
it. When it comes to raising a family, like New York has its pluses,
Yeah.
but to me, that's not one of the ones that stood out. So as far as those things go, what things did you guys consider? Did you guys consider like schooling, like the types of neighborhoods that are built in South Carolina or in North Carolina? What all did you guys consider before prior to moving?
Yeah. So, education for sure. The in in New York, in the suburbs of New York, the most of the top rated schools are what they classify as blue ribbon schools, right?
Hmm.
So it's like the top notch in the nation. So North Carolina has its equivalent to blue ribbon schools. So when it comes to education and specifically, whether it's kindergarten, middle school, high school. You can't beat the education for one. So that was a priority. And just being sort of in an environment where we have families that share our values, that was very important, because you could be in the greatest neighborhood, in the greatest school, and if your neighbors are jerks, then it's still a miserable experience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was important. Just being around folks that share our values, and obviously activities for the family. And when it comes to this particular pocket of the state, we're 2 or 3 hours away from virtually anything, so that was important too. So schooling for the little ones, and just that good old family support structure and community structure. Those were the winners.
Now that's perfect. One of the things that I actually thought about when we moved here, because we actually didn't have any children yet, me and my wife. So we were actually just moving for ourselves. But one of the things we thought about was expenses, because New York is
New York is legit.
New York ain't cheap. I'll tell you that. So, what was your course, like your action plan? So, when you thought about moving to North Carolina, how long did it take you between thinking of moving to North Carolina and actually packing up and moving to North Carolina?
Yeah. So, and I'll back up a little bit. North Carolina wasn't the original plan. The original plan was Florida.
Okay.
And then, we kind of did some more research, and then that went from Florida to Austin, Texas, right?
We thought about Austin too, yeah.
Yeah, we thought about Austin, and then when we settled on North Carolina, we literally, we went out, and we kind of crashed with some family. And when our family went to work, me and my wife, we would literally just put some miles on the car. We would drive around. We would get out and talk to people. If we see someone at Starbucks and we saw an out-of-state tag, like a New York license plate, we'd say, "Hey, you from New York? Yep. You live out here? Yep. Tell me about it." So we did legit recon. We would find a neighborhood. We would drive through the neighborhood in the morning. We would drive back in the afternoon. We would drive back at night to see what it looks like at nighttime. We would drive back when school's in session to see, if the kids we went in. And if we're driving through a neighborhood and, we see someone walking a dog, the moment you make eye contact, boom, you're it. We hop out. Hey, hey, we're looking to relocate. Can you tell me about the neighborhood? And we gauge that, some were very inviting, and, to some credit, some thought we were creeps. So, we fed off that too. And we did our homework, and then we would go back home. We would go online and we would look up the neighborhood, look at the price points, look at the proximity of that neighborhood to hospitals and grocery, and all of that. We went in for a good, and this is gonna sound crazy, a good year and a half of just thorough research. We drove down, crashed with family again, and we just picked another neighborhood and another neighborhood and another neighborhood. So before we packed it up, we were doing research for a good year and a half, 2 years, putting miles on the car, driving through neighborhoods, going in a Target parking lot, park up and just people watch. We were straight creeps, but the right decision was important. So we did those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, the way you say you guys would pull up on people and just ask questions, that wouldn't have fly in New York.
Not in New York.
That wouldn't have fly in New York at all.
You're asking for problems. Yeah, man.
Definitely. Now, that decision to move, has it strained any of your family, friendship relationships as far as that go? That decision to move your family from New York to North Carolina? Has it put any strain on anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So,
Positive and negative, of course.
yeah. So, I find in our culture, and when I say our culture, I'm specifically speaking of Black folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are very used to familiar setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you decide to get away from the norm and venture out, you will get more of this ain't gonna work, this ain't gonna work, this ain't gonna work. And on the surface, it seems like they're hating, but they're not hating. They're just expressing that a part of me, which is you, is now leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to go, right? Even if you live down the block and you'll never see each other, just the idea that you're always down the block and you're accessible, that's a big deal. So when you say, hey, I'm out, it's sort of like a piece of that person is not gone. So we face that. We face some, there's nothing like New York, and there's nothing like New York. But at the end of the day, I think it's where you are in your life as far as the next steps or whatever. If you wanna grab something to eat at 4 a.m, you can find a spot in Brooklyn or in the city open. You're gonna find that out here, which is okay, right?
True.
But the flip side of that is, that was never really our
lifestyle. I hear you.
Right. Wasn't really our lifestyle. So at 4 a.m, if I want something to eat, I don't really need to go to the bodega. I just go downstairs and open the fridge. Same thing, right? Yeah.
Make my own sandwich.
Yeah. But we also had folks that were very supportive. My mother, for example, she was very supportive about it. My brother was supportive. So we had an equal share of both sides of the spectrum, with it and against it.
Nah, I feel you on that. We also received a bit of like, oh yeah, like you guys are crazy. Like you moving like from New York to like North Carolina, like that's wild. Like why would you? It's so slow down there. I heard that a lot. Like,
yeah, I heard that too.
And I mean, not for nothing, it is a bit slow when it comes to New York pace, but New York pace wasn't what we were looking for when we were planning to move.
Yep.
For me and my wife, it took us about 6 months between our decision, like, oh, we're gonna move to like actively moving. We actually came and visited you guys. We came and visited you guys in February.
Yep.
Of 2018, just to visit. When we got down here, the community, everything, it was just so, it was popping. I'm not gonna lie, and it made our decision really quick. By August of 2018, we were here.
Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? And it didn't take us long to purchase a home. And just started to build our family as far as that goes. So yeah, now we definitely received that pushback, like, oh man, it's going to be slow, but it was a good slow because it worked out for us as far as it go. One of the things I do want to talk about is you work in law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Are there any harsh realities that you come across as a police officer that impacts the way you raise your children, specifically your son? Because in light of what goes on in our world, a lot of people look at police officers as in a negative light, and that's not what we want to do. Your career and your choices are your career and your choices. And so do you come across any harsh realities, like things where you're like, okay, I need to make sure that my son is aware of these things before going out into the streets? And of course, we're not in I would say that we're not in a area, Charlotte, North Carolina, where things really pop off like it would in New York City. But do you come across any things like that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So that's a question that with so many different variables, right? So when when I look at my son, right? Obviously, my son knows, what I do, and my son looks at me as his hero, right?
Right, as he should.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, when I'm in the quote unquote streets, and I engage someone that has broken the law, has done something stupid, right? Or maybe hasn't done anything, but is in the company of someone that does something stupid. Every time, and I mean every time, dude, it gets to where cuffs got to be put on, and we go back to the station house, and we unpack all the issues. It comes down to more times than not, dad is nowhere around. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is absolutely crucial because I look at the setting in suburbia versus the inner city. The inner city is more of a grind, and there are a lot of things more accessible to, unfortunately, get people in trouble, right? And I see in suburbia that law enforcement and law and order isn't only respected, it's admired, right? So you go to like Starbucks and or Chick-fil-A or wherever you go out here, you're in uniform and you're at the line, and you will literally find folks fighting to pay your bill, right? Whereas up north, you go to some of these same establishment, and you might find someone possibly trying to spit in your food, right? So it's a different dynamic. But going back to your question specifically, I find that more times than not, way over 90% of my interactions, and I'm not going by any statistics, I'm going by, you have a real world example here, a real legit example. When things are unpacked rather, dad is nowhere around, right? And so what you have is dad isn't around, and you have mom holding down 2 or 3 jobs, and then unfortunately the streets are raising the kids, right? And we have inexperienced men raising kids, and that's a recipe for disaster. So I mean, honestly, I don't have those, Aiden, this is what you do, did you come across, Aiden's my son, by the way. This is what you do should you ever encounter law enforcement. I don't need to have those conversations with him, because if he sees a police officer, he's excited to go say hello. So it's a different experience for him. So he doesn't see the fear that I think is promoted in our media when it comes to law enforcement. He sees a completely different dynamic. So if he sees a cop on the street, he's gonna run up and say hello. He's not gonna run away. But I come back to a family structure and just dad being present in the home.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why we created this podcast, is to talk to more fathers, because I really personally, I feel that that's something that's missing in our community, is the thought that dad is there. It's not necessarily that's a statistic, which we know it is, but we just want to make sure that people know that there are fathers of color who are present in their children's lives, and we want to bring that to the forefront. So that's
tons of us, man.
That's definitely one of the reasons why we created this podcast, and why we want to talk to all the different fathers that we know, just to shed light in that way. If you could, Gary, if you could give advice to any father who was planning on, moving or getting a different job, anything to better their family dynamic, and make it better for their families, what's one piece of advice that you would give a father who's trying to make those decisions?
I know this is about fathers of color, but I'm gonna pivot a little bit.
Do it.
You gotta have an extremely strong support system, right? My wife, your sister, she is next level when it comes to that, right? So would I say that a single father can't make it? No, but it's extremely less taxing and less stressful when you have a strong support system. I will be the first to say, and this is gonna go into the social media verse, but I don't know when dental appointments are. I don't know when doctor visits are. I don't know when school activities are. I don't know when PTO meetings are. I don't know when anything is, right? All I know is I get these emails. We have like a family inbox email, and some doctor will say, "Oh, the visit was great," and I call her up and I'm like, "What visit?" And she's like, "Yeah, idiot. They had a dental appointment." I'm like, "Oh, great." Or someone will say, "We'll see someone in passing," and they're like, "Oh, Aiden rocked this speech," and I'm like, "What speech?" And she holds it down in that capacity. So my advice is, if you're going to make a move in an uncharted territory, it is to your benefit to have a strong support system, and it starts with the person beside you, because I can appreciate the message behind the podcast, but the having a strong core, because we can't do it alone, bro. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Correct.
So having a strong core is important, and it's not just your children's mother or father or whatever. It's also folks around you. You know what I mean? It's inevitable. You're going to be in a situation and you're going to have an oh crap moment at 2 a.m, and you and your wife are going to look at each other, and you're going to need that third party. So having a support system is paramount.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, they're right when they say it takes a village, because it definitely does. And that's, again, one of the reasons why we make that decision to move states, because we wanted to make sure that our village was a village that we could trust, but yeah, no, thank you, for popping on our podcast and allowing us to interview you. Everybody, this is Gairy James in another episodes of Father in Color. Right? Have a wonderful day. Peace.